2006, the world was stunned when an ancient Christian text, lost for over 1,700 years, was translated and revealed. It was called the Gospel of Judas. Not Matthew, not Mark, not John, but Judas, the very man who betrayed Jesus. What does this mysterious gospel actually say? Why did it disappear for centuries? And does it change the story of Jesus? Let's unravel the mystery of one of the most controversial discoveries in Christian history. To understand the Gospel of Judas, we must go back to the early centuries after Jesus' death and resurrection. The first Christians, apostles and eyewitnesses, began spreading the gospel throughout the Roman world. But not everyone agreed on who Jesus really was. By the 2nd and 3rd centuries, many alternative writings and teachings began to emerge. These were called Gnostic texts, spiritual interpretations of Christianity, but often very different from what the apostles taught. The Gospel of Judas is one such writing. It claims to offer a secret conversation between Jesus and Judas, hidden from the other disciples. But before we discuss what it says, we must look at where it came from and how it was found. The story of the Gospel's discovery is dramatic and chaotic. In the 1970s, an Egyptian farmer discovered a papyrus manuscript buried in a cave in El Minya, Egypt. It contained writings in Coptic, an ancient Christian dialect of Egyptian. The manuscript was eventually smuggled out and passed through the black market. For decades, it sat in a safe deposit box in New York, decaying and forgotten. It wasn't until the early 2000s that it was restored, translated, and authenticated. In 2006, National Geographic published a complete English translation. The world had never seen anything like it. The Gospel opens with this line: "The secret account of the revelation that Jesus spoke in conversation with Judas Iscariot during a week, 3 days before he celebrated Passover." What follows is a bizarre and mystical dialogue between Jesus and Judas. Here are some key points. Jesus laughs at the other disciples, saying they do not truly understand who he is. He tells Judas that he alone knows the truth and that he is different from the others. Jesus describes a cosmic vision, where flawed angels create the physical world. He explains that Judas will help him free his spirit from the human body by handing him over to death. Judas is portrayed not as a villain, but as the most obedient disciple, carrying out the divine plan. In this version of the story, betrayal becomes salvation. Judas is not cursed, he is chosen. The Gospel of Judas reflects a system of belief called Gnosticism. Gnostics believed the material world was created by flawed spiritual beings, not the true God. They taught that salvation comes through secret knowledge, gnosis, not through faith in Jesus' death and resurrection. To Gnostics, the body is a prison. Jesus didn't come to die for sins, but to reveal divine truth. Judas, by helping Jesus escape his body, was part of that secret plan. This theology is radically different from the New Testament message. It denies the incarnation, the cross, and the resurrection as understood by Christians. That's why the early church rejected Gnostic writings, including the Gospel of Judas. Let's pause and ask the question, can Judas truly be a hero? The Gospel of Judas offers an attractive twist, a misunderstood man, secretly doing God's will. But it has no historical evidence. It was written more than 100 years after Judas died. It was never accepted by any of the early apostles or their disciples. The 4 Gospels of the New Testament, all written in the 1st century, paint a very different picture. Judas betrayed Jesus for money. He was filled with remorse. He returned the silver and ended his own life. Jesus called him the son of perdition. The Gospel of Judas rewrites that, based on a theology disconnected from eyewitnesses. Scholars are fascinated by the Gospel of Judas, but not because it tells truth. Instead, they see it as a window into the diversity of early Christian thought. It reveals how some groups tried to reshape the story of Jesus to fit philosophical systems of their own. Elaine Pagels, a scholar of early Christianity, said, "It doesn't give us facts about Jesus. It gives us insight into the minds of Christians in the 2nd century who were struggling with the meaning of betrayal, authority, and spiritual knowledge." Even National Geographic, which published the translation, made it clear, this gospel is not a lost book of the Bible. It's a Gnostic text, rejected by the early church and preserved only by chance. The Gospel of Judas is a fascinating ancient document, but it doesn't rewrite history. It simply shows us how far some were willing to go to change the truth. So don't be misled by secret gospels. The real message of Jesus is not hidden. It's been preached for 2,000 years. He died for you. He rose again, and his words still speak life today.